I'm Luca Giliberti, contributing writer for Gold Derby, and I'm joined today by Oscar and Grammy winner Finneas O'Connell, who served as the composer on The Fallout. So Finneas, to start things off, I would like to know what your initial idea for the score was after you read the script, and how that idea evolved as you dipped your toes deeper into this story.
Great question. When I read the script, I was struck by how authentic the dialogue and the relationships of these high schoolers were. I think I'm now about to turn 25, but when I read the script, I was 22. COVID has a strange way of doing that. And I think, Billy was at the time 18. And 22, you feel like you were just high school was just a moment ago, and I was sort of real time watching an 18-year-old navigate the world. So I just was like, wow, this is really how people this age sound, which is just hard to achieve. And so I think to support that, the thing that was really important to me was not to dramatize, not to have music that was super heavy handed. And I wanted to be very sort of minimalistic and gentle in the approach of it. And that's kind of a blessing and a curse, because minimalism in general, I'm very interested in minimalism kind of in all forms, but especially in music. You always think, oh well, that's kind of easy, I'll do a couple things and it'll be done. But the reality of it is you have to pay such close attention to every layer, because there's nothing disguising anything. When I make a song with drums, guitars, bass, synth, piano, tons of vocals, my guitar part, I could be making mistakes left and right. No one would ever hear it, because it's woven into this fabric. And in a score like this, there are oftentimes an instrument or two. And so I didn't really feel like there were room for mistakes. And it was also about finding textures. I wanted to find textures for it that didn't feel sort of like inorganic or hyper organic. I didn't want to use like a violin and a piano, but I didn't want to use a trance synthesizer or something. I wanted it to feel like it would breathe as a person. So I settled on this kind of wind approach, this sort of like these synth parts that kind of breathe and wash in like a tide on a beach. And I felt like that was really effective as I watched the film. I wrote everything while I watched the movie. There was nothing that I wasn't writing while watching the footage.
Interesting. And to sort of build on that, I'm actually very curious about your first spotting session and what sort of arose out of it, because what purpose was the score overall supposed to serve in the context of this story, and at what point did everyone want it to sort of kick in the film?
Right. Well, my memory, which could be wrong, we did all of this over Zoom, the COVID way. Mm-hmm. My memory of the spotting session was there. I don't believe there was any temp. I could be totally misremembering that, but I think there was no temp. But I watched the film with Megan and Payman and just talked about there should be something here, there should be something here, there'd be something here. And I'm sure we talked about emotions of it, but yeah, I know that that's slightly unusual not to have any temp score. And not that it's unheard of, but that was interesting. Mm-hmm. And it was the first time I'd ever scored anything at all, or even tried to. And so through a desire to not even impress them, but to just do a good job, I did, twice as much composing as ended up in the movie. I was, like, we really want the shooting scene in the bathroom to have no music, and I'd be like, great, but here's an idea if you want it anyway, and that was kind of my approach to the whole project. Mm-hmm. Which was great. It was a great learning experience. And Billy and I, my most common collaborator, we're ruthless when we're editing stuff. We will record thousands of layers of something and then cut almost all of it out. I've gone on record talking about when we recorded all of the orchestra for James Bond, like, we cut 70% of that out. We would leave just parts of it. And so it was kind of satisfying to be on the other end of that, like to as the music editor moved in, it was like, no, we don't need this piece, we don't need this piece. And I thought that was great. I think the less of something there is, the more you value it. I think it makes the parts where there are music that much more exciting.
Absolutely. And, you've also talked about how you wanted to make the score as intimate as possible. So let's talk about some of the film's most intimate tracks, which are, in my opinion, at least, the hug and the kiss, both of which, play over scenes in which Vada and Mia are connecting. And they are similar, if not, identical in parts. So talk about creating the main theme that we hear in both and why you wanted there to be a connection between those tracks.
Yeah, I mean, again, with this being the first thing I'd ever done, I think my favorite film scores have motifs and have you're seeing a movie usually once ever in your life. If it becomes your favorite movie, you watch it again. But some of the best movies I've ever seen, I've only seen once. And so within the span of 90 minutes, you should hear something you like again. And Sam, the music editor on this film, did a really great job of helping weave things back through. That was another one of the things of like being a first timer on this, was just trying a million different things and then focusing in and going like, oh, the thing that is playing over the hug, we feel like that really is the correct resonance. Where can we put that in again? Where can we use that and change it a little bit, but have it be sort of the same motif, which I think helps with cohesion.
Yeah, 100%. And I'm being very honest here when I say this, but I probably listen to those tracks on a daily basis at this point.
Really?
I do. There's something really very soothing about them. And I remember the theme playing over the shot of Vada and Mia in the pool, twirling in the pool with the face masks on their face, and it just kind of washing over me. And I think it's something really nice to return to, especially if you want to relax.
Wow, I'm very honored to hear that. I love that movie so much, and I have such fond memories of working on the pieces of music. And to me, the most satisfying thing about the whole process was like, I wouldn't have made those pieces of music if I weren't watching that movie, right? Like they're and I think that's really exciting. I spend every day making music, and it's like making something that wouldn't exist without something else is really satisfying. So like I remember sitting and watching that scene of them in the pool with the face masks, and it cuts right from her hugging her friend, right? The kid whose brother died. I just remember watching that and being very moved and just sort of sitting there playing. And I mean, that's the coolest thing, is being transported and inspired.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's a very moving score. And I would like to actually stay in the lane of intimacy and talk about the heart-to-heart between Vada and her sister Emilia, which is such an important scene in the film, right? And I think it changes the way Vada does things going forward. The score is very subtle here, but the track is called My Most Favorite and adds so much to that scene. Could you talk about what you were trying to convey with the score in this case?
Yeah, I mean, again, it's like the goal of not being heavy-handed, but of being, I think we're such musical people, like we're such musical like organisms, that you kind of like the amount you remember your life based on what you were listening to when you were living your life is pretty profound. Like when I think back on like every drive I've ever been anywhere, I know what I was listening to. Like, especially if like maybe not like every commute to the coffee shop, but like anytime you're like, all right, we're driving up to, we're driving in Arizona. Like I remember everything I listened to on that drive. I listened to music constantly when I'm cooking at home. And I think it was sort of about like, what would be the subtext of the music under this scene, right? They're both supposed to be asleep. They're obviously not listening to music, but what would feel like the song that this scene is writing? And to help achieve that, I did this a lot of the time while I was making this film score. I didn't work with any tempo or anything. I just would watch the film and I'd play as the scene progressed. And I thought that was a really necessary thing to do for scenes like that, where there's these emotional beats and the music has to hit the emotional beats without being constrained by like this is happening underneath everything, and then it goes to this chord and this chord. So I just would watch the scene over and over and play along to the scene and play along to the words they were saying. And I really wanted, and the other thing is, like, I don't ever know how low down the music's going to be in the mix. So I was like, maybe this will be basically inaudible, but I want it to just exist at this kind of like subatomic level where the things they're saying have this kind of like musicality to them.
Mm-hmm. And then there's that beautiful scene between Vada and her dad where they really have this honest conversation, and then basically shout everything they're feeling, which is
can I tell you a crazy thing about this scene?
Of course, go ahead.
Okay, so I live in Los Feliz, California, and especially during COVID, but even still, because I love to do this. I have my dog Peaches, and I live in Los Feliz, which is right across from Griffith Park. Mm-hmm. And so I walk up into Griffith Park almost every day and then hike around with my dog. And during COVID, there was like nothing to do. And so I would really do that every day. And there's an area of Griffith Park that I love called Cedar Grove. Mm-hmm. And I walked up the trail to Cedar Grove, which I have done a million times. And I saw the actor David Ortiz sitting there with his like sides, and there was a film crew setting up. And I don't know David Ortiz. I think he's great. And let me make sure that I'm naming David Ortiz correctly. I think
that's correct.
Yeah, David Ortiz.
Yeah, that's great.
Anyway, so I saw him, and I loved him in Steve Jobs. I loved him in Silver Linings Playbook. I just think he's great. And I saw a cinematographer that we actually shot part of Billy's documentary, who goes by K2. She's wonderful, but she's like working. They're all in masks. She's in glasses. Her glasses are all fogged up. She's got her mask on. Like, the exact thing I'm talking about. Yeah. And it was one of those things where you see someone and you're like, oh, I know that person. And you think like, I'm not going to bother them. Like, they seem so busy and preoccupied. And so I just kind of walk through this film set. It's not a private area. So it's like, I'm not doing anything wrong by walking through it, but they're using this location. It's COVID, whatever. Mm-hmm. I walk through it. I walk down the trail, and I was already attached to the fallout. And I get a text from Payman, the music supervisor. He goes, hey, you just walked through the set of the fallout. And I was like, no way. And he was like, yeah, David is Vada's dad. And we're shooting the scene with her and her dad. And I was like, I thought that scene was supposed to be like over the ocean, because I'd read the script already. And he was like, yeah, but we're just going to CGI the ocean instead of the city. And I was like, oh my God. So it was like just this super random coincidental thing. But I think that scene is beautiful. And, I love the writing of that whole family in the movie. And it was really easy to write the music for that scene. I felt like the dad in many ways, because I am a big brother, I think the dad was the character that I sort of resonated with the most, of just the kind of helplessness you feel when, somebody that you love in your family is subject to this terrible thing, and you feel empathy, sympathy, you feel anger. I love that he talks about how angry he is. Yeah. I love that she curses out the shooter. Yeah. I just think that's such true, profound writing.
Absolutely. And, I don't want to say that the score here is hopeful, because that's not the destination the film is heading toward, but there is some light and some ease there. Is that something that you were going for in this case?
Yeah, totally. I mean, it's such a like realistically heavy film that, I think those things, it's important to recognize the love in reality. There's bad things happening every day somewhere to someone, and there's still a lot of love and profound goodness that can exist in that person's life, even though they might forever be changed by circumstance.
Absolutely. And I'm always interested in the final track of a movie or a TV show. And in this case, the final track plays over the end credits, but after the song While You Sleep. When you're creating a composition that'll play over the credits, is the main goal to add sort of an exclamation point to the movie? Or how did you approach that track, which is titled Ending in this case?
I think in this film's case, I wrote a piece for the credits. But you know, it's also common in film to have sort of like a score suite, which is like a
Right.
couple different parts of different pieces playing throughout. It speaks to my inexperience, but I do really like that there's a new piece that plays over the credits. Like I thought that was really cool. And yeah, I just wanted it to be, you know, I had an idea of like it ends in this like fucked up way, which is, you know, the fact that there was another, you know, shooting in an elementary school, whatever it was, 3 weeks ago. It's
Yeah.
like it's never ending in America at this point. So it ends on the most realistic note I think it could possibly end on. And I just wanted to score something that felt kind of, you know, I don't know, like not again, like not heavy-handed in its like in how defeating that feels, but in a kind of a like melancholy way of like, this is the world we live in.
Absolutely. And like Jenna Ortega said when I spoke to her a few days ago, there is no end to Vada's journey. And I think the music also really conveys that in the end credits. So you mentioned earlier that was your first time scoring a film, of course. So what did you enjoy most about that the experience of that and of just working on this film in particular in general?
Well, this film in general, I think, is really good. So that was a, you know, that's the thing that I was fun to work on this one specifically, because I imagine scoring a movie that's not very good is less fun. And then in terms of here's a new experience, what do I love about it? I loved that you know, again, like I loved being inspired by it constantly and making pieces that I would never have made without watching the movie. And then as I got deeper and deeper into it, creating a little world of like, these sounds are the way that this movie sounds. That was really satisfying to me.
I can absolutely imagine. And on a final note, Finneas, I would be remiss if I didn't mention that you and your sister won the Best Original Song Oscar earlier this year for No Time to Die.
Crazy.
Crazy,
Yeah,
right? And there
crazy.
was nothing more joyful than seeing your sister hop on stage out of excitement and not be able to shake that smile. So what did this win mean to the two of you?
You know, we wanted to do a James Bond theme song so bad, and we thought maybe that would happen if we were lucky someday. That was kind of always how we felt. And so we never imagined that we'd get to do it as young as we did it, but it was like the perfect opportunity. We knew that Daniel was making one more film. We sought out, you know, meetings with Barbara and MGM, and you know, convinced them to basically let us audition for it. You know what I mean? Like they definitely don't go like, here it is, go write something. They go like, yeah, we'll see, you know, which is smart and safe. What if we'd written something terrible? But honestly, every step of the way, in terms of writing the song itself, which was really satisfying, recording it with Hans, Stephen Lipson, Johnny Marr, that was so sick. That was like I don't know if I'll ever get an excuse to work with those three guys together on something again. It was so fun. And you know, the movie itself I think is awesome. Seeing it in a theater with the song in it, with the melodies reinterpolated through everything, was so cool. And yeah, I mean, it's crazy that we won an Oscar. I see that I see that in my living room, and I am like, no way. Like it's really crazy. But I'm very honored, you know, and I also think I bet everybody that wins an Oscar feels this way. When we won all our Grammys, we have so many people to, you know, that we feel, you know, are also responsible for our victories, right? We love our label, we love our publicist, we love our touring team, we love our managers. But at the end of the day, our music, like Billy and I sit in a room alone and make it. And you know, so there's this kind of like other than all the people that we love, the auxiliary team members that we feel, you know, are part of the reason we're where we are. We have this feeling of like, damn, look what we did. I think in the Bond case, it was such an immense collaboration with so many people. And again, it was like this movie where it was like, wouldn't have written that song if I hadn't read the first 20 pages of the script, which was all we were given access to. You know, so it's like, I felt like so many people won because we won. That's like how it felt, where you're like, all these people's input like pays off on this. And I bet that's how everybody felt. I bet you feel like if you're an actor or actress, you feel like it's validating the casting director, it's validating your mom for believing you and taking you to an acting class. It's like it's validating everybody. So yeah, that's definitely how it felt.
I can imagine, and congratulations again.
Thank you.
And thank you so much for taking the time to speak to me today. It was such a pleasure, Phineas.
Of course.